Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining us in this edition of SRE Practitioner Series. I'm your host, Suresh GP. We are actually talking on episode number 14 of SRE Practitioner Series. Today, I have an esteemed guest, Sandeep Hooda, who is the Senior Vice President of Site Reliability Engineering at DBS Bank. Thanks, Sandeep, for taking time and entertaining our viewers on the Site Reliability Engineering journey at DBS Bank.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Suresh, for inviting me to this talk. I mean, this is something which it's very close to my heart to talk about SRE, and I'm really happy to, share with the world wherever possible. Thanks for inviting again.
Excellent. So to get started, we have a lot of, details around how DBS is transforming as an organization holistically. If you look at DBS Bank, particularly, it is known to be a leader in cloud native development. How does the cloud operating model look like in DBS Bank?
Okay, so the new apps, right, which we develop, right, we always leverage on many features which our cloud platforms, give us, right, like basic native principles like container-based, services-based, API-based, dynamic scaling and auto healing, and of course, instrumentation for traceability and observability, right? So these are principles which help our apps to be more resilient, right, and robust and rapidly developed.
Yeah, that's great, because it's very heartening to see how DBS leads in the forefront of the journey. Now, if you look at today, more businesses, as we've seen in the last so many years, we used to have this concept of you build it, you run it mindset, right? If you remember, AWS, Werner Vogels has been very vehemently on that particular concept. But now we have over a decade of change under our belts. Is this concept still relevant? Has it brought the benefits that is promised to the rest of the world?
I know when you say you build it and you run it, it's more like DevOps, right? So what DevOps was to have a tight collaboration between the development teams and the operation teams, right? And why it was required is so that we can have a transparency and a common understanding, right, for the changes which being deployed to production. Right. And they review their performance or if any issues encountered during the deployment, right? But this does, it help us because it does provide us key insights into developing and maintaining the code, right? But that said, but there are certain specific skills that our developer have, and also an operator has, right? So they're not like it cannot be like, give me an example. An architect can build a great house, right? He can design a perfect house, but he cannot be the firefighter. Correct. So you cannot extinguish the fire. So that's the difference between a developer and an operator. But the concept is still very relevant, right? And it serves its purpose, right? Especially with our holistic approach, which we have for SRE. We do look at SRE's influence on development through design, code quality, testing, ops, and ops through observability, and of course in the end incident response. So this really helps even today.
So it reconfirms that even over a decade, it still makes sense for organizations to get value. Now, yeah, particularly within the APAC region, because we do a lot of interviews with people across different globally, but I'm very interested because DBS Bank based in Singapore, what are the main factors driving the adoption of the cloud native operations in the APAC region?
Well, unfortunately, when the COVID pandemic struck us, right, it had a major impact on the people, but also it did accelerate, the digitization across, not only in APAC, actually, across the world, right? The daily use of mobile apps, digital platforms, from banking to ordering food to, everything being delivered through the apps. So everything was actually, the whole mart was on the apps, right? It became a norm, right? And the organization had to quickly adapt and be adapted. Otherwise, they were at a risk of being redundant, right? So fortunately for DBS, our 8-year digital transformation journey, which we have been putting on on a good stead, and to support our customers digitally, We having a cloud native apps actually allowed us to develop and deploy features, scale it, and of course, recover much quicker. They were supporting the sudden surge which we had in a volume while maintaining the performance and resiliency. As we look at the reliability factors, the cloud native delivers on the key aspects of elasticity, scalability, redundancy, and brings about the ease of rolling out changes incrementally. This helps in our, this it helps with our release velocity.
Right. So no matter how you spin it, right, it's going to be cloud native is going to be difficult, right? Comparing to legacy applications, cloud native applications are more complex. Would you agree? Why and why not?
I totally agree with you. Okay, legacy applications actually, they were complex. I mean, we'd not say they're all complex because they had tens and thousands of code, when they were written. They had their challenges to be maintained, right? But they had simplicity attached to it, right? Because all the code logic, everything was at one place, and it was relatively sequential in nature. But what happens with cloud native? Cloud native tends to be smaller, more componentized, right? But it comprises of many hundreds of components communicating with each other, through some kind of mesh or gateway. But in this ecosystem, the component services, there are underlying dependencies and relationships, right? And as the ecosystem grows, so does the complexity of understanding and maintaining the app. But
Right.
even with that increased complexity, it doesn't mean that it is bad. What we need to do is we need to bring in more, the hygiene of security and observability. They become really essential components, right? So once we have a deeper observability to understand the transaction flow, we can trace down the whole customer journey and the interdependencies in the services, right? And this really aids in quicker detection and faster recovery. So it is, therefore, it's checks and balances, which are required to manage the increased complexity in the cloud native application.
I like the word that you said, that the hygiene of security and observability, because many times when people talk about reliability, they're only talking about availability and uptime. Now, without having security as an integral part of your ecosystem, we will be coming up with a lot of log4j issues that will actually pop up more issues further. So I love the fact that looking at things holistically, from bringing in just not the availability part, but the hygiene of security, observability, making the right level of check and balance, because there is always trade-offs, right? It's not just about saying that there is one size fits all approach, and
Yeah.
that would probably be not the right way to go ahead on that, right? Now, you and I are passionate about site reliability engineering. Now, many times when we go for organizations building SRE as a capability, we see a lot of grappling around prioritization challenges and fatigueness. So does DBS also face similar challenges? If so, what have you done to address them?
Well, I don't know if I don't think so. It's right to say that any job is not challenging. But site reliability engineers, right? They do face challenges in maintaining an ever-growing in this ever-growing technology landscape. As we know, COVID changed the situation. A lot of things which change our situation. Technology is ever evolving. New things are coming in, new technologies. I think every 3 years there's a sudden change in the whole technology world, right? So it's not different for DBS as well. I mean, for us, our SREs also face challenges, but we do have some programs, which we have put in place to, improve our operations journey, reduce toil, drive SRE as a practice to address such challenges. And of course, the SRE practice, as part of SRE practice, we also create enablers. We develop our own tools or enablers, as we call them, to help and manage some of these, challenges and fatigue for our SREs.
Yeah, I think this is a great journey of the last 8 years that you are talking about in a digital transformation, because there's a lot of patience and perseverance that has gone to build such kind of a capability. Now, many of the organizations that we see, when we talk about DevOps, there is already a disconnect as two different departments in silos. So many organizations, when they embark on the journey of site reliability engineering, they wonder about how do we reduce organization silos. So what are some of the ways that you have seen within DBS to bring the development and operations team together in a sense of a shared purpose to achieve great results?
It's a very good question, and I think when you say silos for organization, we have been seeing this. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against ITIL, but since ITIL days, we have been seeing that there were vertical silos which were created in an organization, especially in the technology world, and that actually it's not the silos were bad. Everybody was doing the best to perform in those in their areas which were divided. The silos were there because there was no flow of information, right? The
Right.
information was not flowing as it should be, right?
Right.
So that was the only thing which was getting hampered. And with the SREs coming in, and we trying to bring in error budgets and other things into our in our principles and practices. Actually, that really helps to break these silos. So what we do in DBS is actually to have a shared responsibility across the teams and departments, right? We go on and achieve the common goal. So our KPIs are shared. It's not like it's not that different teams have different KPIs. We have shared KPIs. We make sure that there's a transparency of the information and source code. We can reuse each other's code. We don't have that kind of problem that this is my code, do not use it. We don't have this kind of silo partitions, right? And also we form cross-functional squads, right? That's between the business and technologies. We kind of believe in something called platform 2-in-1. We call our certain technologies like digitization, digital world, right, or maybe payment systems, right? We call them platforms, and we have 2-in-1. So we have a business representative as well as a technology representative working together and collaborating to make sure that we work on the hard issues. And these are just few techniques we use in DBS. I mean, I can go on for this. It's because we are so passionate about it. But with this SRE practice, what we are doing is as I mentioned earlier, we have put in, we are embarking on error budgets, which really help us in the application world. And it really helps us to bridge between the ops and development teams, and also to prioritize the release in a joint manner, right? Which is supposed to be the DevOps thing, right? Okay, so also our seniors and management is also focusing a lot on horizontal organization concept, where we form virtual teams across departments with various skill sets, and they contribute to the common cause, right? Which is the one 2-in-1 platform was an example for that. So yeah, and on top of this, we also have this SRE training program which we created in-house, which actually makes sure all the technology folks are trained on the same same training, and so that they know all the concepts, they understand each other, the language, the lingo, everything is shared. So that's what we're trying to work on.
Excellent. So I think I have a few takeaways from what you said just now. The first one that I love is you have a shared KPI, which is a very difficult concept to even think about, forget about implementing, because the developers are measured by the number of defects per lines of code or the release velocity, whereas my operations teams are focusing my response time and resolution time from an idle days, right? And you also talked about the concept of the horizontal organization, where we are trying to bring in that that level of synergy between the different teams. The last, and but not the least, was you said you developed an in-house curriculum for SRE, because a lot of times people think that, oh, okay, we've read the Google books, we have learned doing the Google training, so SRE should work. Because I think culturally, every organization is different from the way they operate. So we need to have an adapt and adopt model, which is very relevant to do that. So I think we would spend a significant amount of efforts to design a program which is curative to make that much more impactful for that team. And it's fascinating in terms of also the support that you get from the senior leadership team, because without their blessings and support, the way you can accelerate this whole transformation becomes very difficult, isn't it?
Yes, very true. I mean, this you're spot on, right? We spent a lot of time. We did create a bespoke, a curriculum. Not only that, we also have our own SRE principles, which we created. So that is, so that everybody resonates within the organization. So yeah, and of course, this was not possible without the senior leadership support, right? They were all into it, and then they said, okay, let's take this challenge and drive this across the organization. SRE practices, blameless culture, so many things we did as part of this whole program which we developed. Yeah.
Awesome. So one of the other things that as a passionate SRE looks forward is reducing toil across the value chain, right? Not only when we talk about technical debt within the developers making it, but also bringing in the significant effort reduction, improving productivity, but also bringing in the long-term value. So what kind of automation tools were available for you to reduce the toil and focus on efforts to bring long-term business value?
Our principle was simple, right? We automate or bring tools which are required to implement, which we require to remove toil, right? That's what we had a simple principle in our mind. The thought process was quite straightforward. So we want to just remove all the manual, repetitive, steps which the engineers have to do, so they can only focus on a value-added work rather than getting spending time on context switching and other things. So in DBS, we run this program called Engineering Productivity Program, where we actually focus on making it easier and faster and better for our technology teams, which will focus only on delivering better quality work or software, rather than focusing on the process, or we call it a CASU process, right? A very Singaporean word, but yeah, not to spend time on those, but rather focus on delivering better quality. And this, in a way, this results in a better satisfaction in the tools, processes, training that are available for the engineers in the bank, right? And of course, the result of the program is that engineers are able to spend less time on administrative overheads, more time on focusing on delivering features, engineering better quality apps, while doing this in the conducive environment that helps our talent in the bank, to retain the talent in the bank, right? From the SRE perspective, I think we have engineered numerous tools, on chaos testing, automated remediations, even the managing of error budgets, right? These enablers actually help us to, kind of bring substantial value to our development and operations, right? An example would be an auto remediation engine. We call it DARE, okay, it's DBS Auto Remediation Engine, which really helps us to reduce the whole human interaction in running our recoveries, right? And cut down the execution time. I think it could take like 30 to 45 minutes to recover some service. It just now takes like maybe 2 to 3 minutes to just recover, because there's no human interaction at all. The system detects and recovers. So these are a few things we try to bring in using automation tools in the bank.
Awesome. I think it's been a fascinating kind of a conversation as you described about the SRE journey steps for the last 8 years of digital transformation. So where are you heading in terms of the future of SRE, and what would you give a piece of advice for anybody who are listening as viewers who would want to be an SRE? What kind of tips or advice would you give them in the journey as you've seen through these ups and downs as an SRE?
Okay, well, I mean, every journey is its own pain, and we have to struggles, and we have challenges which we need to go through. And I think what I would say is, for us, what we're looking forward is beyond banking, right? So as I mentioned, we have been engineering a lot of tools in-house. I know next step for us is to bring these tools to the market for the peoples to use it. We are looking at commercializing some of our tools, which is still in the discussion. And I think because these tools are great, they're kind of many of the tools are patented as well. So we are really looking towards that beyond banking, and maybe, as we always focus, our DBS is no longer a bank, a traditional bank, but more of a tech company, right? Yeah. So that's why that's where we are moving. For the SREs, I would say, I mean, it's just that the culture is as important as building tools. Only focusing on automation might not be the right way. You should focus both on the automation as well as the controls. You don't compromise in any one of them, right? The controls as well as the automation have to work in conjunction. Then only you become the best bank in the world. That's excellent. What I would say.
Yeah, excellent point. And I think that I can very much see the level of passion as a site-reliable engineer. So it was a great delight, Sandeep, to hear your experience in implementing SRE in the DBS scale. And we look forward to seeing more success stories coming out of your organization to the rest of the community. And it's also important for the rest of the community to appreciate that it's a marathon. It's not longer a short sprint that we can say that we started off an SRE journey, it's all going great. But so it's really a great experience sharing around, and I hope that we all will get inspired to do more success and get the whole community benefited on site reliability engineering.
Well, that's what I hope for, Suresh. Hopefully, we do that. And thank you again for inviting us. I think we share the same passion, and I think we can continue on this more in the future. Yeah.
Thank you so much, viewers. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Sandeep Hooda, the Senior Vice President of Site Reliability Engineering at DBS Bank. And we will stay tuned for more success stories of our SRE practitioners and believe that site reliability engineers have got a lot to make a difference in this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.